Welcome to Module 4. In this one, we're going to talk about managing the injury when it happens. Sometimes you get unlucky, sometimes it just happens, but then you need to, all right, we didn't manage to prevent this one, but how can we get this athlete back to sport as efficiently and as effectively as possible? So to summarize again to our three phases, our three components of injuries again, we're now looking at that blue section, that managing the injury phase, I suppose, of our three-part series. So stages of return to sport look something like this. Not always. Some athletes are a little different. Some athletes are different. Some injuries are different. They have slightly different return to play structures, return to play processes, but it looks something like this. First, you have your pain and repair phase. So getting from in pain and swelling and tenderness and limping and all those things out and starting the repair regeneration phase. So allowing tissues to repair, allowing scar tissue to be laid down and cells to turn over and regenerate. Then you've got return to function. Can we just get rid of that limp, get them back to normal walking, maybe get them back to squatting if it's an ankle injury, or back to doing calf raises, whatever it might be. Then you've got return to training. So this is now the start of our return to performance, where we go from, okay, gone from limping to not limping to walking to jogging, and now we want to get to running, change of direction, sprinting, throwing, whatever it might be. Then we've got return to competition and return to peak and optimal performance. Those last two stages almost always happen together. We try and have return to competition simultaneous to, or as close to simultaneous to, return to peak and optimal performance. There's no point returning to competition if you're still guarded, if you're still sensitive about an injury, or if you're just not playing that well. Then we might as well give it another week, get you back to spot on, and then go for it from there. In a lot of injuries, athletes will talk about being back to normal. I just want to be back to normal. But once you've done an injury, and in this module, we're going to be talking about an ACL as an example, back to normal isn't actually good enough. Previous you, normal you, actually was able to get injured. You had a genetic predisposition, a movement skill deficiency, a strength deficiency, whatever it might have been. You had an issue that created that injury in the first place. So normal isn't actually optimal. We want to get you back to peak performance. We want to get you better than you were before. We want to give you a buffer zone so that injury doesn't happen again. So we use what we call a competency-based progressions process when we return our athletes to sport. And so competency-based as opposed to calendar-based. So many athletes are like, when can I? When am I ready? How many days until? Can I run at week 12? Can I do this? Can I do that? It's all based on reaching certain criteria from the step before, as everything builds on top of the one before. We've talked about Gantt charts before, the idea of a flow-on effect of critical path projects that get in the way of the next step. And there's no point worrying about returning to running if you aren't even doing single leg squats yet, or if you haven't even tried hopping yet. Athletes often want to skip steps because, well, it says on Google that by week 12 I should be running. That's a good framework and that's a good guideline for ACL return, but if you return to running early, and that costs you more time down the track because you weren't ready and you stirred up your patellofemoral joint, or you created some shin splints because you hadn't ticked off enough competencies to be able to reach the running stage. And I think that's a really crucial step, particularly in longer term injuries where you have a surgery involved, maybe you have complete rest period where atrophy occurs and a lot of weakness is created, that rushing back before your body is ready is inappropriate.